Greetings, YouTube. This is Fragments of Memory once again. And I just wanted to share some things because I did a video about not looking bad and looking bad and I just did something on self-esteem. So I found this book that I've been reading on again, off again. I read the whole thing, but I just sometimes refer back to it. It's called 100 Ways to Motivate Yourself. And one of the ways was way 21, learn to lose your cool. And the book is written by Steve Chandler, and it's 100 Ways to Motivate Yourself. And one of the things he says here, and it's Motivation Way 21. It was learn to lose your cool. You can create a self that doesn't care that much about what people think. You can motivate yourself by leaving the painful self-consciousness of high school behind. Because our tendency is to go so far in the timid, non-assertive direction, it might be a profitable overcorrection to adopt these internal commands. Look bad, take a risk, lose face, be yourself, share yourself with someone, open up, be vulnerable, be human, leave your comfort zone, get honest, experience the fear, do it anyway. Show me a guy who's afraid to look bad, said actor Rene Auberjonois, and I'll show you a guy you can beat every time. The first time that I ever spoke to author and psychotherapist Devers Brandon, it was over the phone, and she agreed to work with me on building my own self-confidence and personal growth. It wasn't long into the phone conversation before she asked me about my voice. "I'm very interested in your voice," she said, with a tone of curiosity. Hoping she might be ready to give me a compliment, I asked her to explain. "Well," she said, "it's so lifeless, a real monotone. I wonder why that is." Embarrassed, I had no explanation. This conversation took place long before I had become a professional speaker, and it was also long before I ever took any acting lessons. It was long before I learned to sing in my car, too. Yet I was completely unaware and very surprised that it seemed to her that I was coming across with a voice like someone out of the night of the living dead. The truth was that during that period in my life, I was living scared. Things were going well for me financially. I had serious health problems in my family, and I had that mildly suicidal feeling that accompanies an increasing sense of powerlessness over one's problems. I now think one way a lot of men hide their fears is by assuming a macho kind of dull indifference. I know now that's what I had done. That a psychotherapist could hear it immediately in my voice was unnerving, though. Trying to understand why I covered fear with indifference, I remember that back in my high school, the cool guys were always the least enthusiastic guys. They spoke in monotones, emulating their heroes James Dean and Marlon Brando. Brando was the coolest of all. He was so indifferent and unenthusiastic you couldn't even understand him when he spoke. One of the first homework assignments Devers Brandon gave me was to rent the video Gone with the Wind and study how fearlessly Clark Gable revealed his female side. This sounded weird to me. Gable, a female? I knew Gable was always considered a true man's man in all those old movies, so I couldn't understand what Devers was talking about or how it could help me. But when I watched the movie, it became strangely clear. Clark Gable allowed himself such a huge emotional range of expression that I could actually identify scenes where he was revealing a distinctly female side to his character's personality. Did it make him less manly? No. Curiously, it made him more real and more compelling. From that time on, I lost my desire to hide myself behind an indifferent, monotonous person. I committed myself to get on the road to creating a self that included a wider range of expression, without a nervous preoccupation with coming off like a man's man. I also started noticing how much we seem to love vulnerability in others, but don't trust it in ourselves. But we can learn to trust it. Just a little at first. Then we can build that vulnerability until we're not afraid to open up into an ever-widening spectrum of self-revelation. By losing face, we connect to the real excitement of life. And what if I don't always come off as an indifferent man's man? Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. Now, I I read that and I did highlight in some places just that whole idea of we're afraid to look bad. And just like the quote said, if show me a guy who's afraid to look bad, I'll show you a guy you can beat every time. Because it's just like he has a lot of good tips in that book, and I might share a few more of them with you. One of them was leave high school behind forever. And another one which I really enjoyed, I really thought spoke to me, was, now I forget, I've got to go look for it now. Let's see. Do something badly. 157. It's on page 157. Just to do something badly. Sometimes we don't do things, and it's tip 74, and it says sometimes we don't do things because we're not sure we can do them well. We feel that we're not in the mood or at the right energy level to do the task we have to do, so we put it off or wait for inspiration to arrive. The most commonly known example of this phenomenon is what writers call writer's block. A mental barrier seems to set in that prevents a writer from writing. Sometimes it gets so severe that writers go to psychotherapists to get help for it. Many writers' means of earning a living depends on its cure. The block, or lack of self-motivation, occurs not because the writer can't write, but because the writer thinks he can't write well. In other words, the writer thinks he doesn't have the proper energy or inspiration to write something right now that's good enough to submit. So the pessimistic voice inside the writer says, you can't think of anything to write, can you? This happens to many of us, even with something as small as a postcard to send or an overdue email to answer. But the writer doesn't really need psychotherapy for this. All he or she needs is an understanding of how the human mind is working at the moment of the block. The cure for writer's block and also the road to self-motivation is simple. The cure is to go ahead and write badly. Novelist Anne Lamott has a chapter in her marvelous book, Bird by Bird, called Shitty First Drafts. The key to writing, she says, is just to start typing anything. It can be the worst thing you've ever written. It doesn't matter. Almost all good writing begins with terrible first effort, says Lamott. You need to start somewhere. Start by getting something, anything down on paper. By the mere act of typing, you have disempowered the pessimistic voice that tried to convince you not to write. Now you're writing, and once you're in action, it's easy to pick up the energy and pick up the quality. Singer-songwriter Jon Stewart says, when you're in the first stages of creating, never ever censor yourself. We're often afraid to do things until we're sure we'll do them well. Therefore, we don't do anything. This tendency led G.K. Chesterton to say, if a thing is worth doing, it's worth doing badly. Going out for a run gives me an example of the same phenomenon. Because I don't feel that I have a good, strong run in me, the voice says not today. But the cure for that is to decide to do it anyway, even if it will be a bad run. I don't feel like running now, so I'm going to go out and run slowly in such lazy, bad form that it does me no good, but at least I will have run. But once I start, something always happens to alter my feelings about the run. By the end of the run, I noticed that it had somehow become thoroughly enjoyable. In my self-motivation seminars, I often give a homework assignment for people to write down what their main goals are for the next year. I ask them to fill no more than half a page. This is not a difficult assignment for people who are willing to just come off the top of their heads and have fun filling the page. But you will be surprised at how many people absolutely anguish over trying to get it right as if they were going to be held forever to what they write down. Many people simply can't do it. To get them to complete the exercise, I say put anything down, make something up. It doesn't even have to be true. They don't even have to be your goals. Just do it so you can understand the exercise we're about to do. The point is to just do it. In many ways, we're all novelists like Anne Lamott. Our novels are our lives, and many of us get a tragic form of writer's block that causes us not to write anything at all. It's a tragedy because deep down we are very creative. We could write a great life. It's just that we're so afraid of writing badly that we never write. Don't let this happen to you. If you're not motivated to do something you know you need to do, just decide to do it badly. Add a little self-deprecating humor. Be comically bad at what you're doing. And then enjoy what happens to you once you're into the process. Do it badly. Learn to do things badly. And don't be afraid to, and lose your cool a little bit. I like that. I do like that. That's just something I wanted to share with the YouTube world. I think people are too afraid of putting on a front and looking good. Woody Harrelson summed up the black man in one sentence in the movie White Men Can't Jump. Him and Wesley Snipes were having an argument, and he says, "You're just like every other brother I know. You'd rather look good and lose than look bad and win." And too often we just want to look good. Everybody want to look good and how we come off. It ain't even worth it, you know. But anyway, thank you so much. The book is 100 Ways to Motivate Yourself. And I just read 2 of them to you. And it's written by a Steve Chandler. It's a really good book, really good ideas. And sometimes I forget to apply what I know. And that's shame on me. So bad boy. There you go. Well, be easy like Sunday morning. Take care. Have a good day. Thanks.